how to promote them. So you're in safe hands right now.
Are we going to learn how to promote ideologies today?
We will see. So when we speak about political ideologies, we're going to an area where terminology is on some kind of gray place, and very often people are speaking of things that they have not come to a consensus with the people that they are speaking to about what is the topic of the conversation. It is because when speaking of political ideologies, the terms have not definitions that are agreed by everyone. This is the picture that we get from Wikipedia at the article List of Political Ideologies. And you can see that many times. But in order to have a meaningful talk, we need to agree on some terms and definitions. So, what is an ideology, and specifically a political ideology? I will propose you the following definition. It is a system, as in set of ideas working together, of political beliefs, political meaning, how we live together. The consensus we come to in order to be functioning as a society. Also, every ideology is centered around some cornerstone values or principles, which might be, for example, tradition, or solidarity, or identity, or liberty. And based on that cornerstone, we build around it the remaining parts of our ideology. For example, if our cornerstone is solidarity, then we're going to be pro higher taxes, more distribution of economic wealth in order to support the people who are at a disadvantage. If we are for individual liberty, we would support lower taxes and more freedom for the individuals. So always the entire set of these ideas is depending on the cornerstone values. Speaking of values, we can easily see that what ideology is about is always ethics. And in the end, ideology is something we believe in. There is no objective science to say, for example, if taxes should be low or high. You don't have a proof. Yes, the economic theory, the different economic theories could defend the one or the other extreme, or some kind of balance between the two, but in the end, there is no answer that is universally accepted as the right one. So ideology is always something that we believe in. Ethically, this leads us to the point when we don't have the moral right to insist that our ideology is the right one, because it is a question of belief. We can only insist that some cornerstone ethic value is not good with our moral system, not that an ideology is wrong. Also, ideologies can be imagined wrong. So what is the way to communicate ideologies and to promote them? It does not always need to be propaganda, but propaganda is a very common tool. It is a way of communication, obviously. It is used to influence people to further some kind of agenda we have related to our cornerstone values. And it is by definition not objective. It is also kind of ugly, and it provokes common sense because it works best when common sense has gone. So why Larp could be a tool for promoting ideologies? I would like to argue here that it is always promoting ideologies as long as every kind of art and every piece of art is promoting some ideology. Every Larp, to a different extent, is an artistic creation, and therefore it does promote the view of its creators Larp specifically is not almost, it is always about social interaction, and it cannot exist outside the context of society and politics. It always communicates the creator's ideas. So every political Larp, we'll talk about what political Larp is later, every political Larp promotes ideology, every Larp promotes ideology, but with non-political Larps it is not always that clear. So do we agree that Larp is an artistic creation that always promotes ideologies? Everyone agrees. How many of you know who this guy is?
I am.
This is...
Damien Lewis.
Sorry?
Damien Lewis. Major Venture.
Yes, this is Major Winters from a show called Band of Brothers. It is about World War II. It's created by the good guys, so it's okay. It's ideologically correct. And the point here is that this it's not photo, it's the snapshot has been taken at the moment that Major Winters, he was not major yet at this time, he just shot a very young, almost a child, Nazi soldier, and he was a little bit overwhelmed by that. So yeah, when you want to relay the message that war is hell, this is what we call artistic expression, this is what we call propaganda. When we want to promote an idea, it is in Larp, there is a very thin boundary between the two options if we do an artistic creation and if we do propaganda. And a little bit later I'm going into 3 case studies that we can discuss after that to see to what extent this boundary has been kept, and if it's not, why is it bad or is it bad at all? I'm sorry, I really have an issue with that. So a little bit of theory. This is a collection of articles from Somogokta 2016 about Larp politics. It reviews several games and several scientific, sociological and psychological issues of political Larps and Larps that promotes political ideologies. And one of the editors in the preface of the collection says that political arts can be either of 3 things. It could be either political art or an educational tool, and this is my favorite, and others might be preachy in a way that makes them banal. So in the next 3 case studies, I would like you to be mindful on the fact if they are political art, each of the 3 cases, education tool, or preachy in a way that makes them banal. We go to case study 1. This game is called Last Will. Last Will, it is a Swedish game. It is produced by a non-profit organization in Sweden called Ursula, written by 3 people, Annika Strand, Frida Gavelo, and Sofia Stenler, and run 2 times in Stockholm in the years 2014 and 2015. The story of Last Will is set in a dystopian future where a failing economy has created high unemployment, people have become very poor, safety payments are non-existent, the entire security net of people has collapsed, many people are homeless, they don't have what to eat, and this entire hell is run by big corporations that got rich on the expense of workers. This maybe sounds familiar to you. While at the same time the government is good, but it is just helpless because it cannot do nothing against these big bad companies. The game itself as gameplay takes place in a gladiator stable called Jericho. They exist because many people in the situation that has been described, they go into debt. And they start to have more and more debt, so they need to, many of them get basically to slavery. And some of them are gladiators. Some of the people are free workers, which means they have contracts, they have some little salary, but they are always at the risk of being kicked out, and there is nothing they can do. So they have a little bit of freedom, but it is very questionable to what extent they can use this freedom, because they're in constant fear of being kicked out. The others, the so-called lifers, have sent a life contract, which gives them security that they're going to have a roof over their heads, that they're going to have some food, but they have no rights whatsoever. Specifically in this game, no right to vote, and it is the day before the national election to parliament. I forgot to ask, has any one of you heard anything about this game? Only George, okay. So what the website of the game says, the Larp is about fading human dignity in the world run by money and consumption, in which people can be bought and sold as commodities. Freedom is weighed against security and survival, and the team question is, what is my value? The Larp is for 43 participants, it lasts 23 hours, it has some very nice mechanics to get people in game and to make them feel this entire thing. And it is available to use under the terms of the Creative Commons license, which gives us the right to adapt the game and change it, which I did. Why did I do it? So, what does this game do? It condemns slavery, not only through its content, but also by some workshops, which designs are suggested as part of the game package. And two of the workshops are about the game itself, to prepare the players for the game. One workshop suggested is about modern slavery, which promotes how bad are, for example, sweatshops in China, which are bad, of course. Also, the game suggests that the reason for contemporary slavery is capitalism. It suggests that the government has good intentions, but is helpless. Any government, they're not very specific about which. And at the end, however, the game promotes the hope that striving for liberty can beat striving for security. This is a very old conflict, freedom versus security, and it has been with the humankind for a lot of time. How familiar are you with the concept close to home?
We are.
You are, okay, so you know about that. It is how much distance players can put between themselves in the setting. Distance is measured by three values: realism, distance in time, cultural distance, and the closer the distance, the stronger the oppression is perceived if oppression is present in the respective game. So when I started to adapt this game to run it in Bulgaria, which I didn't because of COVID, but I will next year hopefully, I needed to see, yes, this is something I read in the package of documents, and I started to laugh, literally, before my computer. This was about the countries from Eastern and Southern Europe. And the document said, the little one hears from these countries is that people are living relatively good, but that free speech and democracy is at risk. How terrible. I'm gonna cry. I literally live there. This is not apocalypse, this is my life. So, I would not feel very apocalyptic, and my players wouldn't feel very apocalyptic, they would just laugh at that. So, what was okay in the game? Of course, condemning slavery. There cannot be any argument about that. Freedom versus security is a very good dilemma, you can do a lot with that, obviously. But, big companies want to take our freedom. I am not okay with that, because of my views, and we can talk about that a little bit later. To what extent is a designer or organizer of a Larp allowed to promote his own ideas, or to what extent does she have the right to adapt a game to be at least not contradictory to her ideas. And also good but helpless government, which nobody in Bulgaria would believe. Yes. So I had to do something with that, and I changed the setting a little bit. And I changed it here. I changed it here. And you can see what I did.
Yeah.
Okay, this is now better, yes?
Could you explain crony?
Crony capitalism is an economic system where businesses are engaged in corruption with the government, and they realize their profits not through free enterprise and action on the free market, but through these laces they have with the government, and they embezzle European money, for example. Yes.
It's basically
All the
a
land
ruined
having-
example taken from Bulgarian.
Or Poland.
So now my players said, yes, we're still gonna play that. We hate the government. So this was the first one. I have tried my best to present you objectively the original idea and to tell you how I changed it. Case study 2, I hate this game. I read about this game in the book that I mentioned before, Larp Politics. I have never played it and I will never do. I'd rather die than play this. Because it is, I don't know, it's outrageous. I'm manipulating you right now.
No.
So, the game is called Inside Hamlet. This is what their website says in the beginning. You are the rot in the state of Denmark. The entire game is based on the play of Shakespeare, and it follows the play quite closely. It uses many artistic expression tools, direct citations from the play, etc., etc. And what they say, your country is aflame with the fires of revolution. The court of King Claudius is isolated in a bunker between the castle fortress of Elsinore, and you refuse to let go of power. So the players are playing the court of King Claudius. Anyone could see that the days of the kingdom are numbered, but not for you. You linger on the edge of action, escaping deeper into decadent madness and murderous paranoia. Your folly is the curse of Hamlet, a numbing fear of decisive action. It will kill you in the end, all of you. The Larp is set in the year 939 in an alternate reality where the French Revolution never happened and the great noble houses of Europe stayed in power. Played in 2 rounds in March 1215 at the real castle of Elsinore in Denmark. It has 3 acts planned around the themes of decadence, deception, and death. At intervals, the players, central characters, act out scripted scenes from the play, line for line, which the authors, the designers, used to stop the action, providing rhythm and carrying the plot further. In Act 1, the players are instructed to play out a wild decadent party, which embodies ignorance and denial of the rising communist tide against the feudal, monarchist, fascist, capitalist rule. I don't know how it can be feudal and capitalist at the same time, but I think these guys wanted to put many bad words together.
Devilish. There should be devilish also.
Yeah.
One word is not enough.
No, you need them, all of them.
Yes.
In Act 2, players are instructed to tune in on plotting, paranoia, and finally despair at the inevitability of collapse. Act 3 represents the death of the characters and of the old order they had ruled over as it was swept away by the revolutionary armies. And as a conclusion, the army of the Norwegian Prince Fortinbras storms the castle and takes the surrender of those who remained alive. So the game really does have strong artistic value, and you can see that even reading that and even feeling outrageous. What is the political agenda? This is from the website of those guys. We're now somewhere in the 1930s, and the revolution has finally come. Fortinbras and his Red Army are sweeping across Europe and will soon arrive at the final bastion of old nobility. This is the end times for all with noble connections or noble blood.
It's Fortinbras.
Yes, Fortinbras is a communist leader, and the court players, if you want to play that, you only get to be in the court and to be decadent. They're part of the, what we call decadent feudal monarchist fascist capitalist rule. Fortinbras declares that the age of tyrants is over, and now in the new age, those who deserve to live would live, and those who deserve to die would die. And the ugliest thing of that all, that after having made your players to play decadent, you know, tell them you have the choice to decide if you live or you die. And I find this disgusting. And most of them killed themselves. And I think this is bad manipulation, so that was my point here. So yeah, excuse me, I was a little shocked again.
Isn't Fortinbras a prince?
He's like,
Pocomania.
I will admit, I like this game for some reason.
Sorry?
Can you explain in more detail why you think that it's a disgusting manipulation to let players decide their fate? Because you think that they are emotionally blackmailed to kill themselves?
Yes, this is what I think, because you have made them be decadent, and in the first place they didn't have the choice to not be.
But this is the game.
Yes, this is the game, but then you don't give them the choice. For example, you kill them because they're the bad guys, and you want them to feel that this is what bad guys deserves.
Yes.
You cannot give them the choice for the one thing and not give them the choice for the other. I think it is like tricking them.
I mean, but this is the game that was advertised with the tagline, "You are the rot.
Yep.
You are the rot in Denmark."
Yes, but then you kill them. Okay, this is my opinion. As I started in the beginning, there is a lot to discuss, and I would love to. So yeah, I see your point. So you don't agree that it is manipulation?
Well, I mean, as far as if you in the advertisement of the event, it's basically, so this is a Shakespeare Larp. So that's, you kind of want them to, so I mean, what happens at the end of a Shakespeare play for the most part, especially if we're thinking about Hamlet. It's the, there is an everybody dies moment.
Yes.
So, but I understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
How would other people look at you if you said, I'm okay with that, I deserve to live, although I was so...
And also, what was important in Hamlet was that Hamlet couldn't make the decision. So that's why Fortinbras is coming to make the decision for him.
I think that the trick here is, because the political message of this game is so very clear, there can be no doubt of what the message is. And you don't allow the people the choice of ideology they would like to argue for. You make them do the bad things after you have changed the play in a way so that it's propaganda. And then you tell them in a kind of secretive and manipulative way that they need to kill themselves, ergo the propaganda is right. This is my interpretation of it, at least. I can see also Nando's point. Yes, they have been informed that they are going to die. What they have not been informed about is that they might choose not to, although all these bad things that they have made. Because I have not put everything in the presentation, but there were some very ugly scenes in Act 2 in this game.
But how much player agency is there? Can they choose to be less decadent? Can they, I don't know, can their actions impact more?
They can choose the level of decadence because, you know, It cannot be forced on them exactly what they should do, but they have been encouraged to be as much decadent as they could.
Is the final part when they have to choose live or die? Is it related to this decadentness, or it is related to the fact that they are the court of King Claudius?
Sorry, which act?
They are the last one.
The last one, the conclusion.
The death of the character.
In Act 3, they start killing each other, and then in the conclusion, the army shoots whoever is still alive, unless they have said, I deserve to live.
Yeah, but is it
Okay,
because
guys,
of
I
the-
haven't been at the game personally. My information is based on some reading that I have done on it, because when I saw about this game, I was provoked to learn more. So I cannot tell you exactly what the players did, because I wasn't there. And I haven't read any first-hand report from an actual player. So, yeah, let's not go into that detail, because I don't want to tell something that was not completely true.
Just have one thought. If you are having a character who is decadent, for me it's obvious, would think that obviously I deserve to live because I don't have a consciousness with what is good, what is bad. I'm a decadent, I'm having fun, I'm using everybody, I'm manipulative, I'm killing, I'm fucking, I'm doing everything, and I don't feel bad about it. So obviously I deserve to live.
This is what I was thinking.
Okay. Okay.
Because why would I just die if I already chose to be
I
there
would never.
and do those things?
But I guess it's not the character's decision, it's a meta decision done from the player. So
But you can choose to live though.
Yeah, but still, I as a character can impose I should supposed to live because I have this and this and that, and I can help the new regime, and that's how basically we are corrupting the democracy, because we have those kinds of people who are doing everything to survive in the politics.
Yeah.
So they are rotten and decadent and all that stuff, feudal, monarchist, fascist, capitalists, and they try to impose that they are good and they are doing the, like, giving the value to the democracy. And well, if it's on meta level decided that, okay, Fortuna said, okay, you old bastard, you can come with me and now rule,
You
Yeah.
might
but
be
again,
useful in
like
some
Claudius, we are now friends.
Like in different thing. After World War II, there was some scientists, like mad scientists, and there were U.S. or Russia was okay. You are fine. You can go with us. And they were like, yeah, we have some ideas. We can be good for you, but yeah, we're still pricks.
Yeah.
So
So we forget your past
Yeah.
because we want to use your skill.
Yeah, but this is a bit more complicated.
Okay, let's go to case study 3. This is a game we have made with George. It's called Operation Stromberg. It is the logo of the game. So it started as a design for a competitive game for team buildings. It was commissioned as that, but then when we started reading it, especially I read the narration and I couldn't stop. So it evolved into a pervasive urban action Larp, and it was played about 2,000 times. I don't know, maybe more in Sofia.
Sofia improved it for
Okay.
another occasions.
In its different versions, mind you, as a competitive game which doesn't have a lot of roleplay because it is for normies. We make them roleplay with a couple of NPCs, but they are not always as good as that. That's so the game is about a guy called Sebastian Stromberg, and he's quite likable Swedish terrorist, which has a strong Bulgarian connection because he has, for some outlandish reason, he has come to study to Bulgaria from Sweden. Why wouldn't he? And therefore he speaks Bulgarian for obvious reasons, because we can't have run a game in Swedish in Sofia. He, of course, falls in love and he gets married. And half of his life is in Bulgaria, and he is very strongly connected to our country. At some point, he returned back to Sweden at the University of Uppsala, becoming an anarchist. And soon after that, he was the leader of a strong international anarchist terrorist organization called New Beginning. I mind you that in Bulgarian this sounds better. In English it's a little bit clumsy, New Beginning. In Bulgarian it's okay.
How you say in Bulgarian New Beginning?
Novo начало. He listens to heavy metal bands like Mayhem, Celtic Frost, and of course Buzu. He likes Russian anarchist authors like Kropotkin and poets such as Taras Shevchenko. And he's obsessed by his canary, called Sebastian, which died, and the guy got very depressed.
And that's why he became anarchist.
So he calls his canary by his own name.
Yes, this is a very important clue for a puzzle.
Yeah.
Because
Yourself.
he also calls his gun like that.
Oh.
Inspirational.
Sorry? Okay.
I already love the guy.
Yes, I know. This was the idea.
Very likable, correct.
So, in terms of close to home, it is very Bulgarian to love Russian culture and to hate the state because everything is fucked up and we want to screw it. So this is one of the reasons that for Bulgarians it is even more likable. What is far from home? You can see. This was because I wanted to make a game about terrorism, but I really wanted it to be far from home because all of the terrorism that was happening right now. So I want it to be absurd.
Yeah.
Here you can see the guy who played Sebastian. This is his good look. And this is when he decides to make a strike. It says that Sebastian Stromberg is the Swede who made Bulgaria famous. And you should remember how he was invited to a reality show. And he got so angry with that he blew the television away with a bomb. So this is what he does when he's angry. Actually, the funny thing is that the guy knows a couple of sentences in Swedish and he uses that in games sometimes.
Okay.
So, gameplay of this game is to plan the actions of your team, which is very important part because they got overwhelmed with information and the first thing they need to do is to plan their actions. On purpose, we give them all the information in the beginning at once. We don't
feed them
yes.
like in curious, just everything.
So what the players need to do is to solve puzzles, interact with NPCs to stop Sebastian from committing a terrorist act in Sofia. Some of the puzzles and ways to get clues are stupid and not convincing because of the initial design as competitive team building. We still haven't got completely rid of that. But I think you could live, even you could live with that. I mean, as experienced Larpers and whatnot. The game has some educational value because the players have to do some actual reading about ideologies, specifically anarchism and culture, because they need to know who Taras Shevchenko is, read a few of his poems in order to find something they need to find. Also, solve puzzles, of course, planning skills I mentioned already, and etc. The political message is basically anti-extremism. He is right, and we like him, but he went too far. So this is what we try to do at that one, apart from getting the money from our client. So discussion based on the case studies and personal experiences. When the message becomes propaganda, how to make a subtle political narrative. Do you have anything to say? And I think we have 1 minute, but as we started a little bit late, I think 5 minutes more would be quite okay.
You wrote it.
Which one?
The last one.
Yes, we did.
And is it replayable for other countries?
Yes.
Like Poland and Krakow, for example, if you
Yes.
just change, do you think it would work or not really?
you will need to do some work on adapting it to another city because it is urban game and it is quite city oriented. So you need to find suitable locations and adapt some of the puzzles to leading to the locations because now the puzzles are formulated in a way that they point you to a certain place in Sofia, for example.
Ilina, don't rush, you still have 15 minutes.
Okay, nice. So yeah, I would like to talk with you, to discuss with you guys.
So on the first bit, the last one I don't think it counts as propaganda. I mean, the message is pretty straightforward. Anarchism is a bit of, well, it's not that it's trivial, but you know, it doesn't play that much of an important role in most countries' political discussion. It's considered fringe in most countries in the world, and it has failed to get traction, and it gets much muddled with other kind of ideologies. So it's not like we're not talking about an ideology that is actually important and present in our everyday life. So I don't think you can make a propaganda against an idea that does not exist or it's fictional. You can have fictional ideologies, but you cannot have fictional propaganda. And as you said, like it was designed to be absurdist, this anarchist terrorists doing terrorist acts in Sofia. It's something that, well, in the present political climate, and I'm guessing, 15 years in the future, I don't think we can switch that much so that this is possible in some way. The second one, which you took the most umbrage with, I think the difference is that it is also the same thing. The intention is just as you did. It's basically absurdist fiction. The whole point of the decadence is to give you a chance to play your darkest desires, let's say, up to a point. And the reason that they have bundled all these words together that make no sense because they have feudal and capitalist in the same sentence is exactly because of that. It's like, okay, we don't care what your ideology is. Like, project the worst thing that you can think of it on this, and play up the decadence. And the reason the choice about living or dying is basically you're like, okay, can somebody really be that that self-serving and that corrupt without also suffering from some kind of psychological condition, like I don't know, maybe psychosis or some kind of narcissism or stuff like that. It's to push you basically. Okay, you are decadent, you are paranoid, you are all these things, and even with all that, it's very difficult to say I deserve to live. Yes, you are rewarded, but you realize that the internal turmoil, that the very decision of saying I deserve to live after all these things means that the people who have done these things in the past and have been so decadent in the past, somewhere inside them realize they were evil at some point, even if they try to escape it. And I think that's the actual message of the game is that basically all the terrible people that have happened to human history, on some level either they understood that they were evil or that they had some kind of psychological problem that made them immune basically to their own judgment.
And about the first one, or it's
can you
the
remind?
last will?
Yeah, the last will. Okay, so I think it's still not okay. Somebody could say that it's propaganda. Hi, can you? Yeah, thank you. So for the first one, I think basically it still doesn't count as propaganda for two reasons. Well, technically it counts as propaganda by your definition, but I think it's something that we would call as acceptable propaganda, in the sense that we do not consider it radical, we do not consider it life-changing. We all think it's silent, we all think we are powerless to change it. And but the important thing that I want to focus on is your changes are not actually that big. Like, knowing your ideology, this is just the minimum amount of switch that you need to do to be comfortable with it. But it doesn't change the message. It doesn't change who this propaganda is targeting. Like, yes, like if liberalism is correct, and all the corporations were running, in the free market, and blah blah blah, blah, and everything would be awesome. When you change it to crony capitalism, basically you are reflecting what is happening now, which basically is what the game was targeting to begin with. So you are not really changing the target of the target of the propaganda. Yes, you're dressing it a bit nicer, but it's still the same thing. As for the government, I think that was just bad design. You cannot have corruption and bad practice and runaway capitalism without a corrupt government. A helpless government is ridiculous in the sense of it. I mean, if there is a corrupt government, if there is a helpless but good government, it's not a government anymore. It's just some people in the mountain that are probably a resistance and are going to get nuked soon. So that's my take on this. So all three I don't think count as propaganda, in the sense of that. Okay, this is a non-objective view of the world that is meant to radicalize people. I don't think they count. But yes, they have a political message and they have an agenda. But it's not that radical, I think.
Actually, it was quite hard for me to find one that was
pure propaganda.
Pure propaganda. That's why I resorted to a Larp that I know quite a little about. I only read about it. This is why I resorted to this, because I couldn't find a game that I know of.
Could it be because people who are writing Larps are, smart enough not to make overt propaganda?
Well, there is one other point that I haven't mentioned. During the communist regime in Bulgaria, there were actually some proto-Larps. Not exactly Larps, maybe like this one, like competitive games or something, but there was some role-playing involved. But it was always subjugated to the Communist Party propaganda at that time, and it was very bluntly promoting the correct values.
Yeah, but we don't have we don't have an example of this to examine today, so I cannot say anything on that.
Yeah.
Do you have documentation of that period? Because that would be really interesting. Because again, in Hungary, they have a similar history, and the pioneers, so the Communist Youth Organization, they all have some kind of connection to these proto-Larps.
Do you know Timur? Who is Timur? It is a Russian boy who was very helpful to people, and he organized something, scout-like groups to help old ladies and clean areas and stuff like that. I think I can find something on him, and the children were quite encouraged to role-play him as a role model and organize between themselves. I will search for it. Do you happen to read Russian?
No.
Okay, that's going to be hard, but you could find someone, maybe, some old lady from Hungary.
But the link is in, that's right, so
Yeah, I will check the Russian internet. I'm quite sure that I will find something. Thank you.
I have some doubt about Sebastian as a character. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't really relate to his political agenda, because on one hand he's fascinated with heavy metal, Burzum, Vikernes, so in general I would say right-wing extremism. On the other hand, he reads Kropotkin, so I would call this, let's say, a left-wing extremism. So I don't really know who the person is and what he wants. He seems to me to be just an extremist, and the message of the game is you shouldn't blow people up with bombs, and that's it. Yeah, I mean, what does this person really want? Do we learn this during the game? What are his ideas, and how can he come up with a mixture of those different extremist ideologies?
In the game there is a quite detailed description of him as a person, which the players get in the beginning of the game, but also mind you that he is a confused guy.
Okay.
So he's not that logical in his choices.
So he's cherry-picking whatever suits his anarchist agenda in general.
In general, yes, and he wants to blow up every existing society structure, and he wants us to go back and live in small communities that are independent.
I was just about to say that barring actual people who are actually focused in their political ideologies and actually understand what politics goes on in their countries, it is very common to see confused anarchists that like, oh yeah, Kropotkin and stuff, but they are also anarcho-primitivists, which takes them to the far right. It's very weird, but it happens a lot.
Also, it is quite typical among anarchists, like you said, they're the most confused of them all for some reason, I don't know.
Yeah, no. I think Fight Club explains this very well.
Who?
Fight Club, the movie.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think Fight Club explains this very well.
Okay, I haven't seen that movie from
And
this
Fight
specific
Club
one.
actually has backgrounds in culture jamming movements that are very, very close to what Larp is today. So yeah, anyhow.
Also, I would like to mention another topic that is not in the presentation. I read an article about 3 Italian Larps that were about oppression, and in one of them, of course, there was some Nazis involved. So they interviewed the guys who played the Nazis after that. Why would they choose to play the Nazi characters? To some point, it was the authors said that they felt that it might be problematic that someone has to play the Nazis whatsoever. And the guys who played them had the problem that they, on one hand, they didn't want to normalize people like that and to justify, because if you really go into that character, you will find out that just like every person, he might have something that is humane in him or her, in him in that case. But on the other hand, they really wanted to know how it felt like to have this ideology for real and to believe in it. So what do you think, is it okay, and to what extent it is okay to portray very, the actual villains in history, real ones, that we all know are real, and to leave players play them without giving them, strict guidelines what to do. And to what extent could this lead to normalizing the bad things that this ideology has done, and that specific individuals, of course, has done, because ideology does not go and kill people, people kill people. So yeah, what do you think about that?
I actually think the exact opposite, that when you play a character, you start understanding the way they went from, having some good qualities to doing actually horrible things, you can start being more self-conscious about what you do. Because it's not like, most people were not born monsters. They went a certain way to get to the point where they do horrible things. And if we understand that way, we can stop ourselves from going in the same direction. Well, everything is tricky. Humans are tricky.
Because at some point you must just realize that the idea of there is a person, there is a problem, there is not a person, there is not a problem is actually quite effective. Stalin said it in
yeah, but how does that, I have no idea, how does this connect to what I said?
The thing that she said, because when you go into such character, for example, if you play such character, at some point it can produce people who is corrupted in his mind and starts actually thinking that this is a good thing. It's a way of bleeding, but
yeah, no.
That's why we have the rolling.
Doesn't always work. I mean, people get indoctrinated in this stuff like every day.
Yeah, but let's say you are not playing a real character, but a fictional one who does atrocities. Then, if we have a player who starts to bleeding too deep, then it's still a problem for him. So it's not a matter of whether the character is fictional or not. It's the problem of the player who goes too deep and doesn't know how to do the role. So.
But we have the issue of closeness to home here, because a fictional character who does atrocities is a fictional character who does atrocities, and a Nazi is something real that we had 50 years ago.
I would say it depends on the culture, because there are a lot of real characters who are very far from home, for example, from our European context. So for me, I don't know a lot about Japan and about cultural and political processes in Japan might be as far from home as, I don't know, Lord of the Rings stuff. So I wouldn't relate to those characters.
Yeah, you have a point, but I'm still asking about Nazis, It's always about Nazis when we talk politics.
Yeah, it's hard, because again, in some countries in Europe, there is a legal boundary here as well. Can you display like the swastika or the Nazi uniforms in public, like normally speaking. But okay, now there are laws against that. But okay, this is like theater. This is like an artistic interpretation. What are the possibilities in this? Because again, I mean, it's possible to show a play in a theater that has a Nazi as a character. It's possible to show a movie. Then what about? So yeah, I see the. Anyhow, so this is what I see happening because Larp has a probably less traction in the culture in general. So there is this question as well, whether it's even legal to go and play Nazis in a in a LARP environment.
Well, in Italy, probably it is either legal or they get some slack from the authorities to be able to do that.
Yes?
For me, if I were to design such a game, I could see myself putting a character that pretty much acts like Nazis, but I wouldn't exactly call them Nazis because I feel like that's sort of not taking history seriously enough, because these are very real things that happen, very serious things, and I can't see how we could like make a LARP and put Nazis in it. Like, how can you go tell somebody who's an ancestor of Jews who lived at that time, and telling that, oh yeah, there's this LARP about Nazis, like.
You can always go with the things like they do in the games, like I don't know, in Command & Conquer there was Brotherhood of Nude. They have all the same SS things, but it was not. You think that is that, but you are not specific Nazis.
Yeah, exactly. Like have a character who pretty much acts the same way as Nazis, but not exactly.
Like the clothes are similar but not the same.
Yeah, but those guys did a historical LARP. I mean, strictly historical LARP, so that would not be wrong. But do you think that serious stuff is something that we shouldn't play about?
No. There's serious stuff that's just serious, and there's serious stuff that affects people. For example, playing Nazis that could really affect some people who are more like included in the history. It could be really affecting and traumatizing for them. Maybe even just learning about the existence of such a game.
Okay, Azula?
Okay, as a person who wrote a game when you are a character of Nazi, I would like to disagree with you. I could make a short information.
Okay,
about the
sure.
game. The game's name is Gloves, and participants are playing characters of Sonderauftraglings, so the group from Dresno who came to Poland to collect art for Hitler's museum at Linz. And it's game for 5 person. It's chamber LARP, very freeformish, where it's for next publication of Prism, our Polish book with print and play games. And it's about work and how you doing things properly at work, and you change yourself step by step to do things that when you look at it from outside you are not okay with, but during the process you do that and it feels right, it feels proper, and you've got a lot of reasons to do things from this inside view. Yeah? And I run this game for young adults around 17 years old, and also for an adult. It's with briefing at first, it ends with the rolling and the briefing. We discuss about things. Why I don't think it's propaganda, because this game, it's about people, personal feelings of people, and it should show people the reflection, left them with reflection about universal thing, which is work, how history works, and how history could look differently from different point of views. And well, it's about personal emotions of the characters in political narrative. But we don't, and of course we show them at the briefing what is the accurate political narrative to play that. But important thing is, we don't, I don't teach them the whole political narrative. I show them how to play some things to properly act the storyline. And for me, the differential and when the message becomes propaganda is when you left people with reflection about something, and when you left them with very strict narration about something. So yeah, I left my players with reflection. I could spend with them few hours at the briefing because it's my duty as an organizer. And young adults, when I play with them, said it's important game for them. Not because they want to be Nazi now, but because it shows them that you could do everything right and it could resonate with your own personal beliefs, feeling of duty, trying to be helpful to others from your group or to your family. And at the same time, you could do terrible things because of this starting point. Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting, but theoretically, or our presentation should start.
Yes, well, I was just
Around
about to say that it was
I
was just going to say that it was a really nice conclusion, what Zula said about when it becomes propaganda, and I think we should write it down. I want to write it down afterwards. And I would like to thank you very much and say that if Polish people can do laps about Nazis, it gives us free pass to try this experiment. You're welcome. So thank you very much for the attention.